You know, as we come to this new month, this new week, if you've been reading through the Bible with us this year, we finished the Old Testament, we're now into the New Testament. If you've been on that journey, be encouraged. In some ways, the best is yet to come between now and December 31st. But also, if you haven't been on that journey with us, maybe you just randomly happened across this one talk, I want to encourage you to join us this month for the Gospels Challenge, to read through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 4 different portraits of Jesus. If you are on the daily walk schedule, we're finishing up Matthew, and now we kind of this week turn our attention to the book of Mark. I want us to look at a short little passage in Mark chapter 3. Have you ever wondered, why does Jesus call us to follow him? Well, obviously it's so we can go to heaven when we die. That's certainly part of it. But even that tends to look at ourselves as the center of the universe, and it's all about me, it's all about us, it's all about our eternal destiny. God's agenda is actually way bigger than even just our eternal salvation. And when he calls us not just to be converts, but to be his followers, his disciples, it's important that we grasp what our job description really is. What does God want from us? In Mark chapter 3, we've been reading about, in these chapters, as you read them this week, you'll see Jesus is doing a lot of teaching, he's doing a lot of healing. As a result of that, he's very popular. Large crowds are following him. And Jesus does something that by our culture is counterintuitive, if not just borderline foolish. He leaves the crowds behind and he takes his closest followers and he goes away to a quiet place. In order to reach millions, he's going to focus on a few. And out of that general group of disciples, we get to verse 13, and he's going to focus even more than on the 70 or the 120, however many it was that were following him. We read in Mark 3:13, it says, "And he went up on the mountain and called to him those whom he desired. They came to him, and he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach, to have authority to cast out demons." In these short verses, it says he also called them apostles. Hold that thought for a minute, because all through this passage up to this point, the term he's been using is disciples. And so we've got these two concepts, disciples and apostles. And we tend to use them interchangeably. It means Christ followers, but they really have different, each one has its own focus. A disciple is a learner or follower. Jesus wasn't the only one who had disciples. It was a common part of their educational system. It's almost like in some of the trades today, if you do an apprenticeship, not just going to school with a professor, but doing life together. It's like a farm that's passed on from generations. That idea of disciple or learner or follower, that's captured in that little phrase, that they might be with him. And for the first year, maybe year and a half or so, they don't do much ministry. They're just with him. They're learning from him. They're watching. They're doing life together. And that part of it, the be with him, to be disciples, is half of it. But then he says, ultimately, my goal is to send you out. And in fact, the word apostle actually means sent one. That's why we call it a post office. It's where things get sent. And this group is to have this double focus. Be my learner, be my follower, be my disciple, but ultimately, I want to send you out to serve me. As most Westerners, especially Americans, we tend to view those as sequential. You'll graduate from discipleship, now you'll go do stuff for God. But one of the first things he does after their first mission trip is he takes them away again alone and says, you still got to learn. Don't ever stop being my disciple. So I want you to think this week, and I'm doing the same kind of examination. How's the balance in your life between being a learner, a follower, being with Jesus, and doing things for him, being sent out, being an apostle? Because if those aren't in balance, we don't do very well. If all we're doing is things for God, what is my ministry? What am I supposed to do next? Then pretty soon we're serving out of an empty bucket. We don't have anything to give. And that by the same token, if all we do is just sit and soak and never give it away and never seek to meet needs around us, we can get self-absorbed and we lose all perspective. You know, the logo of Walk Through the Bible, you may have noticed it. You see a little walking man there, but then there's words underneath. It says, take a walk, change the world. And one of the reasons we settled on that tagline is because as a ministry, we want to be committed to both these things. Take a walk. We want to help you take a walk with Jesus, get to know Him and His Word more thoroughly, but then ultimately that gives you something worth sharing that our world, our culture desperately needs, that you would change the world. We're here to serve you any way we can, but I just wanted you to see how much our mission and how much that balance is just so clearly presented right from the very beginning with Jesus and His disciples, apostles, His learners and followers, and His sent ones. God bless you this week as you are with Him, but also don't be surprised as He sends you out to share what He's building in your life. We'll see you next time back here on Walk Through Voices.